Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
Welcome everyone to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're going to have a fantastic show tonight. We have the Reverend Michael J. Carter in the building. Going to go ahead and get in some real good conversation for hours 1 and 2. Then we have, as always, Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries, and Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap-up for hour 3. It's going to be a great show right here on this Sunday, the After Hours radio show. Let's go ahead and see who came in first here. Get the medals out the way. Looks like we got Race Fan with the gold coming on in saying, good evening, Rob. We have Kitty Catty Whack, second wench in, getting the silver, saying, hi, Rob, playing words. We need a little bit more laughter in this world. Hope everyone is having a good weekend. We hope you are too, Kitty Catty Whack, and you're right. Definitely need more laughter in this world. And we got Tim Altman coming on in with the bronze saying, greeting all. Thanks for coming in, Tim Altman. Thanks for showing up tonight. Road Flare in the building saying, hi, Rob. Hey, Road Flare. Thanks for coming in. Robert Lamont Jr. Hey, Rob. Hey, Robert Lamont Jr. Thanks for coming in. Frankie B saying, good evening. Good evening, Frankie B. Right back at you. Thanks for showing up. We got Roger Murray dropping knowledge. February 4th, 1977, 48th anniversary, Broadhaven, Wales, United Kingdom UFO incident. 16 school children, community primary school witness. Object landed in the field. Alien, like Zimbabwe, like Rua. Aerial school. Thanks for keeping us informed, Roger Murray, like always. And thanks for coming on in tonight as well. As we move down the list, we got Disclosure, Global Galactic Disclosure Movement with a lot of emojis. Seems excited. So are we. Thanks for coming in. What else do we have here? We have, getting down the list here, Susan Alloway. Susan Alloway saying, hey, Rob G. Hey, Susan Alloway, thanks for coming on in tonight. Appreciate you showing up. Mel WD40 is back in the building, getting us lubed up, ready to go for the show. As always, thanks for doing that here. We have the In Veritas from Montreal. Thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you. Eternity Eternal, I see you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for showing on up. We have Richard Minnick in the building. I see Richard Minnick. Thanks for showing up. Cosmic Joe Chronicles. Thanks for showing up here tonight. And Mark Eddy, I see you there. Mark Eddy, thanks for coming in. BA, thanks for showing up. And Matt Gutka for showing up. Dragonfly, thanks for coming on in. Queen Peachy King D, thanks for showing up. Let's get ready to start the podcast side Welcome to Spaced Out Radio After Hours, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We have tonight Reverend Michael J. Carter for hours 1 and 2, then Drew Banke with Steve Stockton as well in the third hour. It's going to be a fantastic show. You don't want to go anywhere. Let's go ahead and get this radio side started, guys. Let's go. Oh, looks like we have a few more seconds. Great, because I just saw Gory Tiger out here. Gory Tiger, thanks for showing on up. We got about 10 seconds actually now. Carrying in the Woo Train. So it looks like I might have got everybody, which is awesome. Okay, 10 seconds, and then we're going to go. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. Tonight, we're broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives for absolutely free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram. That's Spaced Out Radio, and that's Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SOR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, right now, Ron Bumblefithal, and oh, so much more. We're going to have a great show tonight. We have Reverend Michael J. Carter joining us for hours 1 and 2. Then we have Drew Banke and Steve Stockton with just great stuff in hour 3. Jam-packed show. You don't want to go anywhere. Make sure you stay right here as we get ready to jump right on into the show. No delay. We're going to bring our guest on in, and that's going to be the Reverend Michael J. Carter. Hello, Reverend. How you doing?
Hey, man. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And 2025.
2025 is here, and
woo!
Optimistic. I'm optimistic.
Me too, man. I am.
Things will be good. Good. Okay, great. And we'll get into that as well. How do you just how did you see 2024 as a whole? Did you see anything good that happened there? And
and I think the listeners. So this, hey, everybody, shout out! Thanks for taking time tonight. Well, as far as, I guess it depends if the glass of water is half full or half empty. I always kind of think things are half full. Obviously, with what's going on with, change in government, what's going on with UAPs and the whistleblowers. And I think that there'll be more of the same coming on in this year. But personally, it was a year of growth and change. And so, I'm excited about now, but I do think, we're going in, human beings, I think as a species, we're going to have to make a choice, or some choices that will affect where we go down the line. I think a lot of prophecies and stuff are starting to be fulfilled, or at least on the radar screen. So humanity's, we're at a crossroads, and I just hope we make some good decisions.
Yeah. And actually, I'm getting an echo here on the.
Are you picking up something?
Yeah, don't worry about it. Let me try. I think I can take care of that from here. Okay, and there we go. We're good to go. Okay. So, just looking back, so obviously at the tail end of 2024, the whole drone situation pops up right after the holiday, right after Thanksgiving in America. It's going for some time. Like, how did you feel about the way the government handled the drone situation in general? What did you think about it as far as anomalous or not? And then how did you overall the
question? I don't know whether it was Robert Bigelow or it was some guy who just said, they're all UAPs. You just have to figure out which ones are theirs and which ones are ours. And that's kind of what I thought, that you just have, well, are they ours or are they theirs? Because we know that we have some technology. It was intriguing how some of them were at our missile sites, which we've seen before. And, we move those missiles from time to time, from what I understand. So I looked at it as just another event, whether it was choreographed or not, to move us again closer to, there's intelligent life out there, and it's not just us. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah, and it was really awesome to kind of see, as I said before, we haven't talked since then, but the way that just the general public reacted, people who have nothing to do with UFOs, I was just really excited about the fact that they were engaging. They were being engaged based off of emotion, things they
Yes.
were feeling, and then we had, for a moment in time, the world's attention for this event. So even if it, and I said this in a moment, I was like, okay, if this turns out to not be UFOs, because I didn't feel like that in the beginning, and I said, okay, if this is a great moment while we have everyone's attention to do the old bait and switch then, and while we have their attention, let's get them focused on the actual issue that we have, which, is the anomalous things that get reported every single day.
Yeah. I agree. And what I did notice was that we speculate, boy, what are people going to do when they find out we're not alone? And there were some people who were, it was a low level, but they were freaking out. They were like, what is this over my house? What is this? No one seems to know. My God. And you're going to get that. And we're going to get a lot of that, especially, moving forward. So it made it more real, at least for me, as opposed to speculating. Because, you read these reports where they say, 50% of the people, or almost as high as 85% of Americans, at least, know that we're not alone. And so it's more of a number in your head. But, I saw some people who were really flipping out, being interviewed and stuff. So it brings it home, and we're going to have to be able, as much as possible, to kind of calm these fears, like I said, as much as possible going forward. And I guess I'd freaked out too if I saw something over my house and didn't know what it was. So it's going to be interesting, but expect more of the same, probably on steroids, as we go forward.
Yeah. I was talking to Reed Summers, who has an awesome channel out there, and we had him on the show right after the new year. And I was just asking him, I was like, it was a great time. It felt like that, if anomalous, that this would have been like a modern day, what they call UFO flap, a UFO wave. And if it was, and I don't know if they fully figured it out yet, because they're still up there as we talk right now. And it's still a question. There's still a question there on if there is an anomalous element to it. If we looked at this and we figured out, oh my gosh, this is an anomalous event, then what would you think? How would you look at this, being that it's been going on for 2 months straight? If it's determined down the line that this was an anomalous event, how do you view that? Because it's a 2-month long thing.
It's a great question. Well, first of all, I would try to remind people. I mean, even with all these kinds of events, we just went through Hurricane Helene here, and not just, but towards the end of the year, and obviously we've had the fires in Los Angeles, and what I try to do is remind people that this is not the first time this has happened. There was the UFO flap in 1952 when these ships just invaded airspace. They were right over the White House.
Right.
I mean, I was born in '57, but most people who are into the phenomenon have heard about this. And so again, and Washington D.C. is probably the most protected airspace on the planet, or at least one of it. And these ships just showed up. What about the ship that showed up in Los Angeles where, what was it, in like 45 or whatever, and they were
Oh,
shooting
yeah.
at it. So
Yes.
there's historical precedent for this. And I think to remind people of that or it would go a long way in lowering the anxiety. It's still it's still freaky, but still, if you give people kind of a historical context. I personally think it was an anomalous event, but I think these anomalous events help our leaders in government make the point little by little that, because, I argue that we're already in disclosure, but, that again, it just points to, hey, this is what's going on, and this is what we need to be letting you know. I mean, let's say tomorrow something, not only do we see a ship, but we may see an occupant. Well, the government can always come out and say, well, we were trying to tell you this, but we were spoon feeding you. So they can kind of be in two camps. And that could very well happen. But from now on, anything you see in the sky, the government has, and I'm not trying to paint anything sinister here, but it works to their benefit because now they can always say, we were trying to tell you this, we didn't know how to tell you this, but the case is made. The case is made.
One of the big things about this, and I think I would feel different. First of all, if it wasn't still happening, because people are still saying that it's happening, but just
Sure.
say that it ended and it was a 2-month period. I wouldn't really be as bothered if it was maybe a week, or even though that still would be substantial. But if when you look back on it, 2 months straight, and then if it does end up being determined to be something anomalous, what that would mean is that these things would be trying to deliver some sort of message. If they're showing up every single day for 2 months, it means they have something to say. And so it's like, that's why I can't wait till we figure this thing out, because is this one of the moments where they are trying to literally talk to us and say something? And one of the things that bothered me about this whole thing, and I've said this to others as well, is that the attention span that the world had for this event. A lot of people were sick of hearing about the story after about a month. We went into the Christmas holiday. Everybody stopped talking about it. We come out of the holiday with the brand new news cycle with other things going on. People had moved on, literally. We had to shift the conversation back to drones once
Mm-hmm.
we figured out that they actually hadn't
Mm-hmm.
gone anywhere. So it's scary to me, because if this, say this doesn't turn out to be one of these moments, then it just shows that if we did have a moment like that, that the attention span would be so short. And that frightens me a little bit.
Well, there's a couple of things. I think they've already been talking to us. When they shut down your missile silos, they're talking to you. Okay, I mean, it's right there. That's number one. Number two is that's the world we live in. This fast-paced, let's go on to the next. Let's go on to the next. We got a 24-hour news cycle. You're picking up things happening around the world. The other thing is we've just gotten over, we're not gotten over, we just had the election. It was the holidays. You got these drones. You got Los Angeles. I mean, there's a lot of things going on at once. And so that's just the world we live in. And you have to be focused. You have to, whatever your spirituality is, you have to hold on to that because this is going to speed up. And if you're not grounded, you'll be thrown off by all the things that are going on. And things are happening fast and furious. I have a friend who's a numerologist, and he was saying, 2025, what is that? Is a 9-year hold on, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, and 9 in numerology is the number of completion. So
Mm.
individually and collectively, we are going through, we're wrapping up a cycle and getting ready to start something new in 2026. And so 9 being that number in your personal life, probably, and in our collective lives, it's going to be a lot of tying up loose ends. Get your house in order for what's coming up. And so, yeah, I like to think that all of this is leading to something. But I think you got to get used to that boom boom, give it to me yesterday. And the only way to do that is to ground yourself, because otherwise you'll be all over the place. Because this is just the beginning. The
Yeah,
beginning. It's the beginning of the beginning, if you will.
I like
You
that.
got all these the whistleblowers were coming out at the same time that all of this was going on. And so you could get overload. One could be overwhelmed.
Looking at this, so it was still going on with 2 months basically, and with the previous administration, and we don't care because to me it's all politics, either administration. But in December, it was like, okay, we don't know anything. We don't know what they are. They go into these classified briefings, come out and say they told us essentially that they still didn't know what they were. We're talking about the FBI, all the people that should know. And, then we get the new administration in, says, okay, we're going to find out what this is day one. Then we get the press report from the White House secretary essentially saying that this was the FAA and some research vehicles that were approved to stay in the air. But the FAA had previously put a ban on drones for like a month. So with that being said, and the way that press release came out without really, to me, it didn't feel authentic or genuine as far as the reason they were giving.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, there was some hope that potentially UFO files would be released in this administration. Does that lead you to feel like that would still happen, that we may have this current president, release UFO files?
Well, I think it's too early to tell. Again, I go back to Roswell in 47 when we would, you get the first thing, hey, this is a craft. Then the next thing you know, it's a weather balloon. So I'm just trying to just get people to connect those dots. This is not the first time we've been flim-flammed. And that's just what governments do, at least our government. I think that I think it's too early to tell. I mean, he's been in office, 14 days, maybe 15
Mhm.
days. And, there's a lot of hot spots. Now we got the tariffs going on. We got what's going on in Mexico, what's going on and those things could be distractions, but it is a lot going on. Gaza just released the prisoners. And this is what we were going to talk about, I think, about how geopolitics and exopolitics converge. And because that's what we're talking now. And so for listeners out there who say, I don't do politics, you do politics. If you're in the UFOs, that's politics, because they both affect. We're talking about the president. We're talking about hotspots around the world, geopolitical stuff. This is politics that we're talking about. And they both affect each other. I thought Trump was going to spill the beans when he said about the drones. He said, I don't know why the government is not telling you, as if he was separate from the government. He said, because they know. But I think that people have told him, like they've told other presidents before him, we'll let you know when it's okay. And this is the other thing. We have to learn to trust our own intuition, because we can't expect our government to be as transparent as we like. So and most of the people who are listening know that we're not alone, know that we've never been alone, know that this is affecting religion as well, and spirituality and consciousness, as well as tech and national security. And so it's those folks who haven't been in on this that will probably need the most support and guidance.
When I was looking at it, the way that I felt was feeling about it, because I had done a show about this, and I just put Trump's clips together where he was mentioning, the drone situation, and it started like in December 16th of 2024, where essentially this is where he said, the government knows. I don't know why they're not telling you. So in that speech right there,
I know. I thought he was going to say something. I was like, "Oh no, I don't know."
He says maybe they're, we'll look into it, but maybe it's research or something along those lines. So he had actually said within a couple of the times he was asked, he mentioned the word research, and it just stood out to me once we had the press secretary's statement, because in that statement it mentioned research. So it felt to me that narrative had been being pushed by the current president since December, and that this release was simply potentially the words of the president and maybe not essentially what is actually going on. Because it didn't feel like that there was any, first of all, time to look into what was going on, and then the statement just lined up, it seemed to me, with the notions that he was kind of putting out a month prior. So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we don't know, but we have to just be patient, and like I said, it's only been it's it just has, we just have to wait, and we just have to be patient. I would also say though that we also have to remember that the president doesn't run the country. I mean, we it's easy to forget that we have corporations and even higher elites that really run the country and tell the president this. Vladimir Putin said something very interesting the other day, and this is whatever you think about him. He said, and you can Google it. He said, "I have survived your last 3 or 4 presidents." And he said, "Let me tell you how it works. The president gets elected, and they come in with an agenda, plans, what I want to do." And he says, 2 men come in with dark suits, white shirts, and ties, and they sit the president down, and they open up a briefcase, and they say to the president, "This is what you're going to do." And we have to grow up, I think, because there are a lot of people in the country who think the president runs the country. And it's not true. There's some things that they will get done. If you get a second term, what's your legacy going to be? But Putin was on, and we've heard people, it's not just Putin say that, but people tell the president what to do. If there's a need to know. At the beginning, presidents weren't even real, Roosevelt and Truman were, but then there was a time in between where this was kept. They had to be plausible deniability, so they had to be secrets. Now that's changed a bit. But, we need to be, I think, really, really clear that, the president doesn't run America. Corporations do that. That's why when people run for office, these corporations and they give money to both sides. So whether you're Democrat or Republican, whoever wins, you're beholden to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure to put that out there, because you can see how you see how the government is run, and that's why you have Congress at odds with the Senate, because there's a little civil war going on there, because Congress doesn't know that this information's being withheld from them. And so there's a government within the government that says you don't have a need to know.
And we'll hold right there as we get ready to jump into our first break of the night, right here on the After Hours Radio Show with me, Mr. Rob G, and our guest, Reverend Michael J. Carter. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be fantastic conversation. You guys do not go anywhere. All right, we are clear. We are clear. And it seems, it looks like that whatever issue it was resolved itself, so we're good to go. There was like some static, but I
You
don't.
know what? Hold on for a minute. It's cold in my house. I have a space heater on. You may be hearing that. Let me turn it off.
Okay,
And you tell me. Did that
no,
make a difference?
no, no, no. You may as well turn that heat back on and get warm because it did. I think
No,
it.
it's okay. I'll get to it. Y'all are keeping me warm with this conversation. I
Awesome.
know someone posted now we have to not talk about politics. I
Okay.
don't mind talking about the politics as long as we're not trying to endorse somebody or say
Right.
something bad. That's not what this is about. But again, you're naive if you're saying you don't do politics because UFOs is all about politics. And it always was from biblical times all the way till now. It's
Yeah.
always been about politics because whoever has the tech controls the world. There are other countries that have tech. There are other countries who are in touch with these beings as well, and the way we're being governed has a lot to do with that. So you're naive if you go, "Oh man, I don't do politics. What are we talking politics for?" Wake up, guys. It's always been about that.
Yeah, yeah, and as he mentioned or as you mentioned earlier, exopolitics. But I just that's a great point that you make there, and I want to have you reiterate that once we come back because
Yeah, I
it
got
does.
some books to recommend for
Yeah,
exopolitics for folks.
yeah. And let me see, we had some other people come on in after. Let's see, we have Broken Shadow Feather. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you. Bomber has shown on up. Hey, Bomber, thanks for coming in. Thanks for the super chat, Richard Minnick. You so much needs a complete overhaul. Okay. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Let's see. Overlander BC. I saw you there. Overlander BC. Thanks for coming on in. Let's see, who else? Who else has shown up? Vaughn. Hey Vaughn, thanks for coming on in. Thanks for showing up. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. I like Ike. Okay, there you go. Thanks for coming on in. Word SOR family. It's a new name too. Thanks. If you're new, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Everyone, please take a moment as well while we're on break. Go ahead and hit the like button. Everyone in here, if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be awesome. Let's see. Woo Riders DG back in the building. Thanks for showing up. Adherent 22. Thanks for coming on in. Suppose if drones are alien and hanging around military bases, then there's something in those bases that is theirs, and they want it back. I've always had that theory, Adherent, that maybe not necessarily with this, but it makes sense what you say there. But I think in general they would want their buddies back and potentially some craft. And what type of species takes the body and puts it away somewhere? What type of species does that? We do. Let's see. All right, I got your question, Dean P. I saw your question there. As Bomber says, put your questions in caps, please, so Robbie Sweets can see them. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. And as I see them, I will check them and ask them in the second hour. Um, the In Veritas, I see your question also. I tagged it. So we are good to go there. Okay, got your Woo Riders. Jay Truth Seeker, I see you out there. Thanks for coming in. Ange, hey Ange. Thanks for showing up here tonight. Sierra, I see you, Sierra. Okay. All right. We are looking good. We got about 30 seconds. That's awesome, Cosmo Joe. Liked and included on my Rob G playlist. Love it. Appreciate you. All right, 5 seconds. I got you, Galactic, as well. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. After Hour 1, we're still in 1 with our guest here, Reverend Michael J. Carter. Getting into some really great conversation, guys. Remember, if you miss any of it, hop in the archives, absolutely free. YouTube.com/@SpacedOutRadio, because you gotta catch up with what we're talking about here. And we get ready to jump right back into the conversation with the Reverend here. So, Reverend, you were talking during the break, and it was really great point to kind of point to politics and how that has been intertwined with this subject for as long as it has.
Yeah. I mean, when we go back to Roswell, who was involved? The military, which is part of the government. And some people may say, well, Michael, that's kind of obvious. But it is obvious. But you also want, at least I do, I'm loving that these whistleblowers are coming forward. I think it's important. I think it's necessary. Now, having said that, I would like to see a little more civilian input, because whoever tells all the stories controls the narrative. And, it's troubling to me that, you're not hearing from civilian people anymore. They may be getting different information than some of our military brothers and sisters who are enlisted. And so, you don't want this militaristic worldview that could be troubling. Because all the talk is about hardware and technology, and I get that, and I don't pretend to know security, national security. All of that is important, but both things can be true, because this phenomenon is also about a shift in consciousness that is not being even discussed. Of religion, at least not yet. The Vatican is into it, but and they have been for a while, but it's going to affect religion. But right now we have, there's a change in nomenclature. No more UFOs. Now it's UAPs. The bodies are biologics. The whole narrative, all the nomenclature is changing. There was one guy, I forget his name, the Rear Admiral. I like him. I like what he has to say. He focuses on the underwater craft. But he was on TV the other day, and he was saying, "Now these are credible people. They're not just mom and pop down the street." Well, you don't want that kind of attitude, because mom and pop may have seen something that you didn't, or maybe have some other experiences. So you don't want the whole thing to become just all about military and military intelligence. You want, I would think you want a more diverse worldview, and so there's more of a dialogue, because otherwise you'll just be shut out, and you'll have people telling you what is real and what isn't, and that's always something my antenna are up about.
And there's definitely a part to play to have data about radar data in imagery and things of that nature, but it's the scientific part of the conversation, whereas the experiencer events are still the ones really that should be the focus, because you get to see what's actually happening, or you get to hear, depending on what the story is, what these things are, how they're interacting with humans directly, versus, okay, this is how we see them through radar, and this is the best way to track them. But as far as what are they doing to human beings, that's where, and maybe that's why they don't want to allow those stories on the main stage. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think a couple of things about that. People have lost their lives over this, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, maybe being afraid that, that they will have some secrets that you need to be, we could probably talk about some of that. But it's hard to tell people that we've been lying to you for 80 plus years.
Yeah.
It's you know, and again, people have lost their lives, people have lost pensions, a whole bit. I would like to see, and I've said this on other people's shows, and no one's calling me up asking, but I think if we did something like what they did in South Africa that Mandela did and Bishop Tutu, if we have a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and that people could come forward and they wouldn't lose, I know you signed non-disclosure. Okay, it's all good. We can't bring back the people that we lost. They couldn't in South Africa. But we start from scratch right here and now, going forward, and all is forgiven as long as you tell us the truth. I think that way more people would come forward without worrying about their pensions, their families. Look, we've been lying to you for 80 years, and this is why. Because, let's say the Creator Treaty, let's say Eisenhower knew about this. I'm not saying he did, but, allegedly he signed that treaty. Well, that's against the Constitution. You were signing a treaty with another civilization, and you're not telling us? And
Yeah.
who knows what treaties we've already signed
Yeah.
that maybe we need to rethink. So if we could just come clean, like they did in South Africa, hey, it's bad what we did, but we're moving forward now. I think that would take a lot of stress off. Because when I was younger and I was even more self-righteous, I was very idealistic and they're lying and now as I've gotten older, I maybe wouldn't handle it that way, but I could see why. They're in our airspace. We can't control it. What's going to happen to our economy? What's going to happen to religion? I get all that. I'm not saying I agree. It could have been handled differently. So I get the secrecy. But now the secrecy didn't work, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so maybe we ought to, and that requires a change in consciousness, doesn't it? That requires a change in consciousness. And moving forward in a world of maybe more cooperation instead of competition, because the world of competition, man, we're this far from nuclear war. The clock the hands are close to midnight, probably more than any time in history since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
And so we need a change, a shift in our thinking. And so that's just my 2 cents.
Do you think with the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, do you think that is something that would even happen under the way that the American government is structured? Do you think that could ever be a thing that they would allow to be put together?
I don't think we're there now, but I think, and maybe it would have to be just for this instance. I mean, come on, man, we're burning books. We're trying to deny things in history. That doesn't sound like a people that's really evolved. I'm talking about collectively. Right. So maybe we do it in pieces. Maybe we do it just for this. And if we see how that works. I mean, South Africa did it. I mean, they were living, the way they were living in apartheid. So I think it can be tried. I just know that everything we've done so far is really not working. Yeah. And I know there are plenty of people, academics, I know there are ministers who have had experiences or if they haven't had experiences, they know that we live in a populated universe, but they can't come out and say it because they're going to lose their jobs. They're not going to be able to feed their families. I mean, I'm a Unitarian Universalist. I'm in a very liberal, progressive kind of denomination. And even then, I just started the last few years being a little more open, and people watch Ancient Aliens, and so they see me. I don't preach it from the pulpit, but I don't have as much restraints on me as my brothers and sisters who are ministers in a more doctrinal church situation. So, but there are people who know what we're saying is true, but they would lose everything.
Wow. So do you think another country discloses before the United States?
Oh, well, there are other countries who are much more open. South America, countries, Brazil, Peru, they're much more open about it. Mexico, they're much more open about this, that we're not alone. We are probably, those countries are the taillights, the headlights, and we're the taillights. And maybe that's because we have much more to hide, because we
Mm.
are the most powerful nation on earth and we have tech that probably other people would like to get their hands on. I'm sure there are reasons for that. And there's control reasons and Wall Street and all that kind of stuff. But, there are countries that are a little more open about this. Some European countries are.
You have here in America, you have politicians on one side, you have humanity on the other side. We're supposed to be all together, but we seem to be against each other in this issue. What do you think, going forward, looking at this is a new year, what can we
Hmm.
do to kind of put their backs against the wall or make them do more than they've done in the past on this issue?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if we have to do anything. Now, hear me out what I mean by that. I think that the way this has been set up now, you just have to be patient. You've got whistleblowers coming forward. Okay? You've got the great debate in Congress. The genie's out of the bottle. Now, yes, you can write your congressman. I tell you what we need to do, we need to study more about this. We need to look at our religion and see how they started. Those are things we can do on our own. And I think that we need to educate ourselves about this phenomenon and what's been going on. But as far as doing anything other than that, I think that now all we need to do is sit back and watch how all of this is unfolded. We've had two congressional hearings. We've got more whistleblowers, granted, all of them military, but we've got more whistleblowers. We got people say, yeah, I was on a crash retrieval team. I was a SEAL. I was a Green Beret. And then someone else comes out and said, yeah, I was doing that too. I think the genie's out of the bottle. I think what we can do is to, among ourselves, maybe start little groups where we get together and talk about this in a safe space. But we need to educate ourselves. And that would help move things forward, because when this does happen, you're not caught off guard. You're not freaking out like, oh my goodness. That's what I see. I think this year more religion will play a bigger part. At least I'm hoping, but I think it will. I think there'll be more talk, not just about tech, not just about national security, but about, wow, how is this going to affect, especially Christianity?
I thought about this. I thought about this because I was, end of the day, we feel and we pretty much know by history that the government kind of won't move on this, and it, even though they've been put in so many strange positions, I've always said, the things that made the government kind of pay attention and then maybe even implement things or change things is when we were as a people joining together and going down to DC, like the March on Washington, the Million Man March, something like that. And I'm like, we got on this because we were talking about how the community is so divided, and this is what they want, right? To see us divided. But if we were to come together, both sides of the conversation, skeptics, the experiencers, get together and do like a humanity march to Washington where we are pushing for answers to disclosure or something like that. I just feel like historically, those have been the moments where the people were heard and things, maybe not immediately, but things began to change afterwards.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really true anymore myself.
Mhm.
And I can give you some examples of that. It's marching makes you feel good.
Hmm.
but I don't know if marching now really changes anything.
Hmm.
I remember, Vietnam was the only war that in my life that the people stopped. The people got together and said, "Whoa, we're not having this. This war has got to stop." And people died, Bobby, Martin, you know. And so then what did the government do? It's like at halftime at a basketball game or a football game. After the first half, you go in and you make adjustments, and then you come back out. So what did they do? Like Vietnam, we're not going to make the mistakes we did in Vietnam. We're not going to show the coffins coming back.
Mm.
We're not going to show that because that's going to make people not support the war. We're going to have journalism, but they're going to be the journalists that we put, that we decide. So now the slant is going to be what we want. So I don't know. I don't know if you march and a couple of days later it's done. They worked in the 60s to a degree, but they made adjustments too. I remember when I lived in New York, Al Sharpton was going to march. I think it was around the Tawana Brawley thing. And he was going to march up to Albany, New York. And Governor Pataki was the governor then. And you know what he said? He said, maybe Al will lose some weight. He said, I grew up in the 60s too, Al. You can walk up here if you want to. And to me, I just listened to that and I was like, here's Al was this grassroots person, organizer, and here was a seasoned politician. And basically he was saying, come on and march if you want. But he had already in his mind, I'm not changing anything. You can march up here if you want. And I think that now that's pretty much it. I mean, you can march, people feel good. And I'm not telling people not to march. You got to feel like you're doing something. But I don't know. And you can't change the problems of today doing the same thing you did in yesteryear.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
Got to find another way.
Yeah. You have to revise the strategy.
Got to find another way.
Got it. And that makes sense. So let me ask you this, because okay, we talk politics versus humanity and just kind of that dynamic.
And again, I want to mention these books when we get a chance.
Yeah, definitely.
About the exopolitics. I mean, they're not my books, but if people want to read them because they're about exopolitics.
You know what? Let's go ahead and jump into that right now, actually.
Okay. There's a wonderful book. They're older. And some of you have read Dr. Michael Sala's books, but he has a book called Exopolitics, Political Implications of the Extraterrestrial Presence. And he has Iraq, a map of Iraq back there, to craft, and the White House. It's politics, geopolitics, and I want to get into that. Here's another one, Galactic Diplomacy, Getting to Yes with E.T. by Dr. Michael Sala. Another book, Exopolitics, Politics, Government, and the Law of the Universe. The foreword is by Dr. Courtney Brown, director of the Farsight Institute. You know him for his remote viewing work. And Paul Davids. He was the executive producer of the movie Roswell. This was written by Alfred Lambramont Webry. And so, and the reason, again, that this is so important is that the Brigadier General, Hayam Mashed, retired.
Yes.
He was head of the space program for Israel. Mm-hmm. And he came out, said that there is a galactic federation, that we have bases on the moon and Mars, that the United States, Israel, and other countries have been in contact with these individuals, non-human intelligence, for 70 plus years. Now, no one locked him up. No one said, what are you, some kind of a nut? Now, this is the retired Brigadier General of Israel's space program, retired. And he said that there are some ETs. He said there's a galactic federation, and there's some ETs who don't want disclosure. Because they said that there shouldn't be disclosure to human beings until we discover what space really is. Now, I thought that was an interesting statement. I know, but we don't understand what space is yet. So not only do you have two factions, or maybe more, of human beings who don't want disclosure, now we're hearing from him that they're extraterrestrials who don't think we're ready for disclosure. Number two, there's a galactic federation. Now, this is politics. And so that means there's a table. And planet Earth is being discussed at the table.
Yeah.
Who is representing us? That we need to know that.
Yeah.
Because our leaders may not be able to represent us. So again, this is politics. We're not talking about don't like Biden, don't like Trump. We're not talking about Democrat versus Republican. We're not talking about that. That has no place on the show, and that's not what we're talking about. But you're kidding yourself if you don't think the extraterrestrial phenomenon is non-political.
And
I would argue that it has been since the time of Moses and beyond. I can give you examples. I mean, that's my thing. I'm a minister,
I want to do that. I want to jump into that. We have about 2 minutes before we go to our off-camera break, and maybe I just want to ask this because, in the year that we're going into, and just the fact that it feels like we've taken a couple steps forward, just with the moment in time where we had the attention of the world for this subject. And the momentum is going. We had the whistleblowers come out earlier this year. So I'm wondering, because I feel like this has to happen at some point in time. Is this the year, or maybe soon, where we bring the religious institutes into the conversation, where they kind of step into the open, into the public, and kind of start having the discussions along with everyone else? Do you think that happens, or is that something we can look forward to?
I think it's something we can look forward to. I would like to be a part of that for all the obvious reasons. But remember, the Vatican's been talking about this. I mean, they've been very public about this since 2009, about that the Bible's full of extraterrestrial stories, Old and New Testament. Francis talked about, I would baptize an extraterrestrial if they asked for it. What's his name? Benedict XVI, very conservative pope, he came out and said that Yahweh is not the name for God. That's an incorrect name. He said that there are UFOs in the Bible. So did, who's the Vatican astronomer? He's a Jesuit. His last name is Fuentes. Corrado Balducci, he has crossed over. He was one of the Vatican exorcists. He said that when people tell you that they've seen these beings, they're not having a nervous breakdown. They're not crazy. They're seeing another type of entity. I mean, so the Vatican has always been on the forefront of this. And I think those religions that make room, like Hinduism, they have numerous gods. Even Catholicism, they have saints, they have Mary, they have numerous deities that you can pray to and what have you. I think Protestant Christianity in the West is going to have a problem because they don't allow for that. And I know we got to take a break.
We're going to stop right there, and as we go ahead and pause for the cause and take a break here, because we're going to be right back with the Reverend Michael J. Carter and more conversation and questions. You guys don't go anywhere.
Conversations that move the needle. You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio. Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show, after hour number 2. We got about, 30 seconds until we come back from radio. And let me see here. Guys, definitely this is the hour that we will be posing questions on the back half of the hour. So I've been tagging them as I see them. Make sure if you have any others that you go ahead and add that to the chats, and I will get them. Welcome. Let's see, we have some new people. Lavera, I don't know if I said hi to you earlier. Hey, Lavera. Dean P as well. Rashid, I see you. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show, after hour number 2, back with our guest, Reverend Michael J. Carter, getting into a little bit of politics, and didn't really realize how far this may go back, how it intertwines with the topic. We're going to talk about that more this hour. You guys don't go anywhere. If you miss any of the show, hop in the archives, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio, where you can catch up on what you missed. Jumping back in with the Reverend here. So, Reverend Carter, you were talking, or we were going to get into before the break, just you had mentioned how politics have gone back and kind of intertwined all the way back to potentially the biblical times in relation to this subject. And then wouldn't mind jumping into that.
Okay, let me start with, let me go with the biggest, I think, the New Testament, and then go back to Old Testament. I'm just going to pick out certain things. Well, even when we look at the birth of Jesus, right? Herod is in charge of Judea. He's a Roman puppet, and Rome ruled that whole area. We call that politics. Herod was upset because this baby, there was talk about him being a king. Okay, that's politics. Yeah. That is politics. It also internationalizes Christianity, because when the 3 wise men come, we're told they come from the east. We don't know if they lived in the east and came from the east, or they just came from the east direction. It sounds like what the Buddhists do when they're looking for a bodhisattva, but they had read prophecies and they followed this vehicle, which we call a star. I think it was something else. And they say, we've come to pay homage to this great soul that is born. And Herod says, I may have to kill this child. This child is a threat to what? To my ruler, my rulership. That's called politics.
That is.
When when they crucified him 30 some odd years after his birth, when they hung that sign on his cross, they said, King of the Jews. Rome played hardball. There are no other kings but me. And so his spirituality is getting in the way of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish high priest, and the Pharisees. That's politics. That's politics. Okay, and he's talking about my father, and but if your mom is human and your daddy isn't, then you're not really human. We call that a hybrid. If we go back to the Old Testament, when we know that in the 6th, 7th, and 8th centuries, primitive Judaism believed in polytheism. We called it not paleontology. We call it a populated universe now, meaning that they believed in other gods because these gods had come down. In the 6th, 7th, and 8th century, King Josiah and his grandfather, King Hezekiah, it's right in the Bible, they started to rewrite the scriptures. We don't want you worshiping other gods. Yahweh says, I don't want you worshiping other gods. I'm a jealous God. I don't want you to even depict them. I don't want to see any pictures of them. And so we're going to have one God, Yahweh, one high priest, one temple. Where? In Jerusalem. So you see the pyramid starting from. So we're going to make this polytheistic. Primitive Judaism was polytheistic. We're going to make it monotheistic. And how did they do that? Well, at the beginning, if you go read Jeremiah, if you go read 1st and 2nd Samuel, they tore down all the altars of the other high priests who were worshiping Asherah, Komash, Dagon. These were other beings. Yahweh says we're not having it. And so what they call that politics. That's called politics. So when they rewrote scriptures, they didn't do it because of grammar. They did it because of ideology. They killed those priests. They got rid of those priests. There's going to be one God now. And when Moses is with Yahweh and they're having this tug of war about Egypt, that's politics. A pharaoh is a king. When we go, when the Hebrew people say, we don't want you, Yahweh, anymore. We want a human king. Now, that tells you that why would human beings want a human king over God? Yahweh's not God. Yahweh's an extraterrestrial. So they get rid of Yahweh. They fire Yahweh, and they get a human king. What was his name? His name was Saul. Remember? He was the king before David. So if Yahweh's God, why would they say, we don't want you no more? We don't want you anymore. We want a human king. We're tired of all this gangsterism.
Yeah.
You see? So, again, people who say they don't do politics, but I'm into UFOs, you got to wake up, because this is just not true. And I can give you other examples, but go back and pick up the Bible. This is all about politics.
So
It's about politics.
let me ask you this, because a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking about you the whole time I was doing this, but I interviewed Chief Rabbi Leon Ariel Malol, and he's with the whole Raelian movement.
Yes,
and
I'm familiar
with their. Okay, so they have this idea or theory that there is no gods, just the Elohim. What do you think about that? Like, what do you think about their whole approach to the subject and the infinity, and all those things?
Yeah, I believe in something greater than myself. Sometimes I use the word God. You can call it the force. You can call it whatever you want. I don't believe it's anthropomorphic. I don't believe it has arms and hands and feelings. There's an energy. There's an intelligence. What the Raelian movement does, and they're right, but the way we got here was that mistranslation of Elohim means God's plural, and when the Bible was monotheized, they made it mean singular. So Elohim means gods, plural, other gods. They come down from the heavens. I don't agree with the Raelian movement, because I do believe that there is an intelligence that we all come from and go back to. Plato talked about that 2,500 years before Jesus. And the Elohim, they need technology to get here. Now, there's some beings who don't. There's some spirits or beings, they can pop up in your room at night. They don't have anything parked outside. For the Elohim, I like the Raelian movement, that they know that there was a mistranslation in the Bible, and that's how we got here to where we are in the 21st century, when they monotheized everything, because Elohim means gods more than one. When the rewrites came along, they made Elohim God, one. And that's simply not what was going on. So I applaud them for that. And that's the big deal, that mistranslation. The Mesopotamians knew that before. They call them the Anunnaki.
Right. It was
They
similar.
call them the Anunnaki. But and that's why I love the Bible, because the Bible, to me, it's got wisdom in it, it's full of stories, but for me, it's our ancestors trying to tell us what it was like to share the planet with these beings. Because you know what we call that today, but nobody wants to use the word. And I think this is probably why the government is a little hesitant. We call that an invasion.
Yeah.
Okay? We were invaded. And you had entities who were in the Holy Land, the Levant. You have entities who were in India, right? They're mostly blue. They were blue people. They're depicted,
Right.
But so we had some people over there. We had some people in Mexico who maybe some of them were more reptilian looking. Some of them looked like us. Some of them very humanoid. But that's called an invasion. We were invaded. And that's what our ancestors are trying to tell us in the Bible. This is what it was like. They didn't know. They saw all that technology. Of course they were gods. And some of them helped us.
There
Some
were
of them, they helped us, and some didn't. Some wanted to keep us so ignorant we didn't know we were naked. And some helped us. They helped Daniel when he was in the lion's den, right? They were there at Jesus's resurrection. Some of them helped Paul when he was in the shipwreck going on the way to Rome. One of them got Peter out of jail, right? One of them came to Elizabeth, John the Baptist's mom, Miriam, Mary's cousin. And some of them just observed. And this is our story.
And I'm just thinking over some of the things that he mentioned in this talk that we had, and I know that he talked about the Elohim being physical extraterrestrial beings
Yeah,
that live on this other
yeah,
planet.
yeah,
Okay, and also he talked about the aspect of Jesus that it believes that Mary was impregnated with
yes,
baby Jesus by the Elohim.
yes. Well,
Okay.
well, 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 they may have been Elohim. We don't know what race they were, but we know we could say they were Elohim. But remember, even with the Elohim, some of them cared about us and some of them didn't. I just gave some examples of when they did care. But they came here. When you read Genesis, right? What do you notice when you read Genesis? The earth is already there.
Mm,
The earth is already there. And so they come down and they terraform. They separate the dry land from the water, from the seawater. They separate the fresh water from the salt water. That's called terraforming. But the earth is already here. And it looks like it just had a cataclysm, like they just had a flood. Remember, there's been many floods. Many floods.
so
Beca-
they no, say they also have uh they also have well, I guess they're saying the Elohim are not gods at all, that there are no gods, because I know you talked about energy and source and just a higher power, but he was explaining it as if gods don't exist at all, and that it's simply
yeah,
the Elohim, and
yeah,
that they
yeah, and
specifically created us.
yeah. I mean, there's some people. There's a book out by it's old. It's part one and part two. Does God drive a flying saucer? And basically, this guy is saying that the Elohim are the gods, and that's an interpretation.
Mm,
That's the Raelian groups. That's their ministry, but
mm,
that doesn't mean it has to be my ministry. But they're saying that there aren't any gods at all. I mean, that there isn't a supreme, like, intelligence. I don't experience that. And when I go back and read Plato talked about quantum physics 2,500 years before Jesus. And by that I meant he talked about you can go back far enough in history where you get to a point where there is no time. Well, that's what quantum physics tells us. He talked about that we're all part of a fractalized universe, meaning that we leave a source. Each one of us is a spark from this source. And we go back to it. Plato believed in reincarnation, and he believed in the gods. But he also believed in this one source that we all come from. I mean, this is fascinating. This is 2,500 years before Jesus is born. And he talks about that we come from that source. We're all fractalized souls. And he talks about that. So there are writings in Timaeus and Critias, if you want to go back and read those things, where he talks about that. But somebody can come out and say, hey, you know, there are no gods. I know people who believe that it's just the extraterrestrials, you know, and that's okay, you know, if you want to believe that. But when you read the Bible, the idea of a God is there, but you really don't really start getting at it until later on. And then by Jesus's time, he's talking about his Father, which is another extraterrestrial probably altogether. Because I was brought up, and maybe you was brought up with the fact that Jesus and Yahweh, that Yahweh was his Father. But when you look at what Yahweh does in the Old Testament, and when you look at what Jesus talks about in the New Testament, we could argue that that Jesus is talking about a whole different person.
And I want to mention one other thing about the Raelians real quick. They had mentioned that they were building an embassy for the Elohim's return. And he mentioned between the years of 2025 and 2035, the 10-year window, I guess. What do you think about that? And what is the interpretation of that?
Well, you know, a lot of dates have been thrown out. You see it on social media. You've heard some people talk about 2027 being a year. Zachariah Sitchin talked about the return of the Anunnaki. And so that time period would seem to make sense from other studies and research. The thing is that I would say you have to say which group of Elohim are you talking about? And that's the problem when we start talking about extraterrestrials, because we act like they all think the same.
Yeah.
You know, we act like that all reptilians are the same or all grays are the same. The Elohim, they're all the same. They may have different agendas like they did when they were here. They fought among themselves. They intermarried with earth women. And we do that with each other. We kind of stereotype each other. So what Elohim are going to come? They may come down here and say, man, I'm not going down there. I'm not going to go stay at that place. I want to stay over here where I used to stay or whatever. So again, that's their movement. And there's another guy. He's on LinkedIn. I forget his name. And he's talking about training diplomats to talk to these beings when they come back. You know, people have the right to do whatever they want. I don't know. My personality is let's just lay back and watch and see what's happening. That's just how I roll. That's just the way. Sometimes it's good to allow something to happen as opposed to forcing something to happen. And it takes patience, and most people don't have patience. But that's a spiritual discipline, to learn to be patient. And we'll see. Like I said in the last hour, that the government it's going slow, but the whistleblowers are coming. Congress is having these conversations. We just had a second hearing. Remember, we had one last May. Now we have one. The wheels are turning. Don't get in the way. Don't mess it up because you can't wait. Let things play out. There are things we can do in the meantime, which I had mentioned before.
Let me ask you this, because we have a super chat just came in from Lavera Lucchini, and she must be reading my mind here because I have this exact, and I'll formulate it as well. But I talked to that rabbi. I just brought up the fact that, in historically, this Israeli movement have been labeled, and I didn't look into it, but it had been labeled as like a UFO cult. So
Yes.
the question is, and I'll read it and then also add something to it. She said, what could be the repercussion of today's alien cults such as Scientology? Do you believe more alien cults will come into existence? And to add to that, because my question was essentially that, because with the prospect of a moment like we're having with potentially this anomalous flap that's happening right now, will you have new groups of individuals that will then turn to these beings and potentially begin to worship these beings?
Yeah. Well, listen, we just talked about it. That's what the Bible is.
Mm-hmm.
They worship these beings, and there will be more. But I would be careful with the word cult. I get it, and I think it's appropriate in this instance. But remember, when Christianity started as a new religion, what did Rome say about it? It was a cult. But I feel that we want to be careful about giving our power away to these beings. Because I know people who they say I don't believe in God, so they believe in the non-human intelligence, so they make them their gods. I was talking to a guy I met at a conference just yesterday, and he calls me every once in a while, or he'll text me, and he said, "Boy, when our friends from above come to save us, that'll be a wonderful time indeed." And I just put down indeed. I don't believe that, and I don't want to go from not believing in a God to just making them gods. But people do, and people will. And that's what happened in the Old Testament.
Yeah, as we got about 2 minutes left before we go to break, I was actually, when I asked him the cult question, I pointed out the fact that within this group, they essentially, I don't want to say praise, maybe it is what they're doing, but there's an actual living human being who I guess it goes by the name of Rael, who created the entire thing. And he's still living man. And it was just, I guess, the cult, the label would come from like worshiping maybe this individual that says he is the channel to these Elohim.
Yeah. And that's what happened in the Old Testament. Remember, the priest, Yahweh made the priest. He made the priesthood, told them what to wear so they wouldn't get the radiation poisoning. They had to wear a certain breastplate that had emeralds and all that stuff in it. And so they couldn't think for themselves. They had to go to the priest, and the priest would go to Yahweh. But we know now that spirituality, and what Jesus was talking about, what Buddha talks about, is that you don't need that intermediary. You can connect with the source through prayer, through meditation, through nature. So these people they just replaced God. They made this guy their God. It happens.
Yeah,
it's just not going to happen with me.
That's the thing, because not to make light of what they're doing, because
no.
I was just I looked at it like in most religions, and I said this to him. I said in most religions, you're able to connect directly. Individuals are able to connect with source, what it is that's over us, and it's just in that particular instance, this living person is who you would go through to make that connection, and it just felt a little weird, you know what I mean? And those are usually the traits of a cult. As we got about 20 seconds left.
No question, and we can take it up when it's over. Yeah, look, people come to me, but I'm not like that, and I'm in a very liberal denomination. But that's how religions got started, through these extraterrestrial beings, and they had the priest, and then we can talk about.
You could definitely continue that thought on the other side of this break. We'll be back for the last 30 minutes with the Reverend Michael J. Carter, getting into some serious conversation. You guys don't go anywhere. It's getting exciting. We'll be right back. Spaced Out Radio, After Hours Radio Show. All right, guys, as we take Rev off the screen for a minute here, let me see. Yeah, I did. I got all you guys' questions there. Lavera, you must be like in here right now with that question. That was exactly the next question that I was going to ask him. So awesome stuff. That means we're like this. That means we're like that. So awesome stuff. Let me see. Who else is here? We have a lot of questions. So let me check here. We have a lot. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 30, 40, 50, 60. We got about 16 questions. We're going to be jumping right into those. So if you add questions here, we may not get to yours, being that so many are there. So we'll go ahead and check that out here in just a minute, as we are now joined back with the Reverend. And okay. Yeah, so we got them all lined up, guys. Let's see. What else we got here? Andromedan. Yahweh is some sort of angel pretending to be a god.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I don't know if he was an angel, but he's definitely. If you go to Deuteronomy 32 and you read that chapter, you will see now in some Bibles he's called the Most High. That's the translation. But he's called El Elyon, depending on what Bible translation you have. But he's carving up the Levant, the Middle East, and he's giving the extraterrestrials the land. And when you get the land, you get the people on the land. Yahweh didn't get any land. He just got the people. He got a tribe of Hebrews. He didn't get the whole tribe of Hebrews, because you had the Moabites, the Hittites. They were all Hebrew people. And so Yahweh didn't get land. So that's why he has to go to war with the other Elohim to get land. And so you have human beings fighting on the side of these extraterrestrials. And they're warring with one another. Zechariah Sitchin talks about it in his book, The Wars of Gods and Men. But they're fighting each other. That's why he says, you don't worship this one. I'm your God. I'm your God. You don't worship Asherah. You don't worship Dagon. You don't worship Baal. So they're fighting. They've carved up the land. They're fighting one another. This is all in the Bible. Deuteronomy 32 goes into how the land is divvied up. The other thing that is wonderful, and Rob, you mentioned it about, you said politics versus humanity, and you said your vision would be that we come together. Yeah, because there's politics doesn't always have to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
When you got leaders who are about the people more than they're about fame or money or greed. And so one day, maybe it won't be politics versus humanity. Maybe it'll be together. I had mentioned, okay, when you go back and you read the king's list of the Egyptians, or you go back to the Sumerian scriptures and you read, Epic of Gilgamesh, the Enuma Elish, you have these beings. And when you read it, you go, oh my God, they can't be human beings, because some of these people ruled 200,000 years, 250,000. Now either they made it up, or if you look at ancient astronaut theory, you go, boy, these are gods, okay? And they rule.
Let me ask you this real quick because we got about 1 minute left. This
I'll get back to it when we come back. Yeah.
They were asking you if you could put those book titles in the chat again, or at least mention them again.
Okay, I'll mention them.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Should I do it now?
You can. Yep.
Okay. The Epic of Gilgamesh. 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 It's a Mesopotamian book.
And the
Gilgamesh, he's a hybrid.
And also the exopolitics as well.
Oh, these books. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exopolitics by Dr. Michael E. Salla. Salla. Yeah. The other book.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. He's talking about these books.
Yeah.
It's called Exopolitics, Political Implications of the Extraterrestrial Presence. Michael Salla. Michael Salla's got another book, Galactic Diplomacy.
Hold right there. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 2. Back end of the second hour, back with the Reverend Michael J. Carter, getting into some great conversation. Once again, if you missed any of it, hop in the archive. Absolutely free, doesn't cost a dime. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. We get ready to go ahead and jump right back into the conversation with the Reverend. So, Reverend Michael J. Carter, can you go ahead and please mention those books, the exopolitics books as well?
Yes. The next book is by Michael Salla, PhD, Galactic Diplomacy, Getting to Yes with E.T. They're on Amazon. An older book is called Exopolitics. I won't give you the subtitle, it's long, but it's by Alfred L. Webre, W-E-B as in boy, R as in Robert, E as in Edward. Exopolitics. They're great reads.
Okay, and for the radio audience, could you tell us the first one again? The first one you showed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exopolitics. Political implications of the extraterrestrial presence.
Okay, great. All right. So we got that one out the way, and we're jumping right on into audience questions because it seems like we got a good handful of them. So we have first question comes up. Dean P. is asking, where did the plasmoids come from?
Yeah, I saw that. I don't even know what plasmoids are, so I don't know. I don't even know what they are.
Yeah, I think this is in relation to the drone conversation. I think plasmoids may be those plasma balls that are being seen as well, aside from those physical objects.
They're like orbs. Are they like orbs? Yeah. I don't know. I just know in a lot of UFO contacts, a lot of orbs are seen. Some of them are seen in people's houses. I read something where someone said that it was a huge orb, and when the orb landed in their yard, an extraterrestrial got out of it. So I don't know. They could be coming from ships, but your guess is as good as mine.
All right. We have Woo Riders DG wanted to know, why the secrecy, Reverend Carter? Why are NHI hiding? Why not just reveal themselves to the public? Makes no sense. They obviously don't have to listen to humanity's leaders. Why cat and mouse game?
Well, this is pure speculation. Maybe they have what do you call it, where you can't interfere with a race that's evolving, a prime directive. When you read the book of Enoch, one of the things that got those 200 angels in trouble was that they came down here and mated, it's also in Genesis, with earth women. I don't know, I'm just speculating, but maybe there is some law that says you can't get involved to that extent. I would say also that that would make more sense, that you just can't show up and look what would happen. First of all, we shoot first and ask questions later. It's not just those folks, the NHI, that are hiding, keeping secrets. Our leaders are keeping secrets too. So it's a many layered situation. Maybe there are treaties that are signed that you don't show up. So you got to think a little deeper that there are probably other factors involved, treaties. Maybe is a prime directive. They're not, and they're not keeping secrets by themselves. We're keeping secrets with them and for them.
All right. And quick note to the audience out there. We actually do have room for more questions. As some of these were duplicates. So go ahead and submit any more if you need to do that. Next question up is, let's see.
Oh, and can I go? Yeah, just
Yes.
for that question. Remember what I said earlier. Chaim Mashed said that there's a group of ETs who don't want disclosure because they say we don't know what space is yet. We haven't evolved to that point yet. And so that could be another factor. There may be another factor too, that there's some ETs who think we are just cannon fodder, that we're not evolved, that we're primitive, that we're violent. There are many factors that probably are involved.
All right. And let's see. Next question. Galactic Disclosure Movement. Question for Reverend Carter. How do we deal with conspiracy theories?
I usually deal with them that if they resonate with me, there's always a little bit of truth in everything, you know. So I guess it depends on each individual's temperament. With this, there's so many theories. There's so much disinformation out there. So that's why I was talking. You have to do your own research, and you just have to, even from what I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go what's in your heart. There's a spiritual discipline called discernment that I get to decide this is worth my time and energy and this isn't. So, and then in that way you learn to trust yourself. So I would say do your own research. Don't just believe what someone tells you. Meditate on it, pray on it, and see if it resonates. And just know that a lot of disinformation has some truth in it, but we're going into 2025. Things are fast and furious. You're going to be hearing a lot of things, and you don't have time to try and believe everything. You can't. So you may want to just do your own research and see what your spirit tells you is true.
All right. And let's see. This one is from Louisville. Charlie is asking, Reverend, I'm afraid to talk about my experience because of my faith with God. How should I handle this?
That's a great question. Louisville Charlie, I mean, you can get in touch with me. I will say some things right off. You can still have faith in God and still believe in that you're not alone in the universe, that there's paleo contact, that we live in a populated universe. Our biblical ancestors did. But you also have to be, you're right to be afraid, or I would say cautious, because you can't bring the topic up with everybody, and it is still taboo in many circles. So you can you want to find some like-minded people. You definitely want to do your own experience, research with the Bible, and you can also get in touch with me, and maybe I could help you.
All right. And let's see. We have the Andromedan asking, what does the Reverend think about Lucifer?
I don't think about Lucifer a lot. I was raised as a Baptist, and I know the bad name he gets and that kind of thing. So I don't kind of focus on that. Lucifer was, at least what we were taught, was a beautiful angel who rebelled. I look at that story a little differently now because of the paleo contact. Did he rebel against the God of the universe that we were talking about, that the source that we all come back and come from and go to? Or did he rebel against another extraterrestrial who was in charge, like in Enoch, when they rebelled and came down and married earth women and had children and taught us things that maybe we weren't supposed to know? I would ask myself that question.
All right. And let me see. We have Sierra, who's asking, who was Mary Magdalene, Rev?
I believe that Mary Magdalene was the mother, was Jesus's wife. I believe that because of nowhere in the Bible is she a prostitute. And, when people were writing at that time, like let's say Rob and I went to a party and we went with you, Sierra. If we were important people in the community, our names would be listed first. I went to the club with Sierra, with Michael, and with Rob. And she's the first one at the tomb, so she's important. In the Gospel of John, she goes to hug him, and he says, "Don't touch me yet," because they put in, "I haven't gone to my God and your God," but it was probably, "Don't touch me. I've just been beat up for 3 days and nailed to a piece of wood. I'm sore." And when you read about him, when you read, for instance, the Gospel of Philip, when they're having this exchange and one of the disciples says, "Why do you treat her different from us?" And Jesus says, "What you mean is, why do I love her more than you do?" And it says that Jesus used to kiss her on the lips. Of course, these books were not put into the Bible for obvious reasons. Enoch wasn't put in the Bible. So I think those are clues that she was really, really important in Jesus's life. Also, a first century rabbi, because he was a rabbi, he was a teacher. That's what rabbi means in Hebrew. You would have to be married. It would be very unusual for a rabbi in first century Palestine not to have been married. So, there's a wonderful book called Born of a Woman by the late John Shelby Spong, Spong. He was an Episcopal bishop, and he elaborates on that in a very scholarly way. And he was of the mind that Jesus was probably married. But of course, when Christianity in the 3rd century became the official religion of Rome, you couldn't have him being married. You couldn't have him having sex. You couldn't have, that just was a no-no for the church at that time. But nowhere is she a prostitute in the Bible.
All right. And let's see here. We had Woo Riders DG also asking, did Reverend Carter see Lou Elizondo's recent comments on 2027 and possible alien arrival in full?
Yeah, and I mentioned that, that their dates being thrown out. Now, Raelian says between 2025 and 2035, 10 years. I've heard more from Lou and from other people about 2027. So those dates ring true. It would be a good timeline because we're getting all these whistleblowers now. Congress is, it's almost like things have speeded up. So I think that that's a good possibility.
All right. We have Galactic Disclosure Movement is asking, how can they get in contact with you?
You can get in contact with me. My email is Michael, it could be all lowercase, J as in Jerry, S as in Sam Carter, Michael J.S. Carter at Gmail. My fan page is Reverend Michael J. Carter on Facebook, and I have another page, just Michael J. Carter. So those are the ways you can get in touch with me. Try to email.
All right. And then
It's
Drew
more
Benke
personal.
was asking, do you think there is any connection between Mary Magdalene and ISIS?
I don't know if there's any connection between Mary Magdalene and Isis, but I think there may be a connection between Mary, the mother of Yeshua, and Isis.
All right. And we have Mike Bothwell asking, for someone who isn't religious, why was the Bible rewritten so many times? Why was certain stuff taken out and added in?
Yeah, great question, brother Bothwell. I can't get into the whole of it, but I would give you this. Remember what we talked about it about 20 minutes ago. Yahweh and Yahweh's priest wanted to monotheize Judaism. You couldn't be worshiping all these different gods. Yahweh won out. Yahweh was a warrior God. And so what they had to do was they had to make it monotheistic. So they took out all the references that they could of these other gods. They killed the other priests who worked with those gods. They got rid of them. This was in this between the 6th and 8th century BCE, before the Common Era. And they rewrote those scriptures to make it one God, one high priest, one temple in Jerusalem. Why? Because it was just easier to govern. But it starts that pyramid. God, emperor, king, president, high priest, priest, teachers, policemen, whatever you call it. You see that pyramid, and it goes all the way down. But that's how it started. That's what I was getting at. But we had to stop. And that's why, because it's easier to govern. And so, and we're still paying, praying, and obeying to this day. But that pyramid was started long ago to monotheize. Yeah. Hope that
All right.
makes sense to you.
We got the a super chat that came in. Lavera Lucchini asking, could the alien God question get into being a false prophet that we have all been warned about?
It could, but they would be two different things in a way, but they would be connected. I would say, yeah, it could be. It could be because if you're giving your power away, like if you're worshiping, well, I don't want to say that because I don't know that man, but if you're worshiping an individual, it's easy to be deceived. The only other thing I would say to that is, because I hear people saying that our president's the false prophet or our president's the Antichrist and what have you. The only thing that I would argue with about that is that if you go back and read like the late great Planet Earth, and if you read even the Bible, these people are supposed to come from the Middle East. Now it could be wrong. But the false prophet and the Antichrist are, if you read the Bible literally, those people are coming out of the Holy Land, the Levant. But
All right.
easily you could be deceived.
And this is a quick question here. Rashid asking, what kind of reverend are you?
I'm with the Unitarian Universalist Church. It's part of the Protestant Reformation. We kind of zigged where everyone else zagged. So we believe, like what I'm talking about now, we believe that there's some truth in all religions, but we believe that you can use your mind, you can use your own common sense, and you can discover what God means for you that way you don't need a priest, a rabbi, an imam telling you and giving you rules for your life. And so when I go to church on Sunday, I was off today, but I have people from all faith traditions. Some of them are followers of Jesus. Some of them used to be Jewish or they're not practicing Jews. Some of them are more secular. And, we're part of the Protestant Reformation. So we pray in our church, we meditate, we have a choir, we sing. We're just more liberal than a lot of the other denominations.
All right, and that was the last question from the audience, and I just wanted to ask you. So, if the aliens get here, we know that some religions include the idea that aliens may be part of this whole thing. But for just in general, looking at religions, do you think that they are going to be open to the other ones being open to aliens being part of God's plan? And then, if so, do you think that they would adapt how they teach in order to include them into the conversation?
Are you talking about the ETs? Or are you talking about human
Yes,
beings?
yes.
I don't know what the ETs, the ETs, when I read the literature and from my own experiences, ETs don't believe in God the same way we do. A lot of them, they think it's superstition the way we do. They will acknowledge that there is an intelligence and a source out there and that we are part of it and that we go back to it. But as far as the rules that come in between, men can't have sex, those type of things. Women can't do this and that. They don't really kind of gel with that. The ETs didn't start religion. We started religion because we mistook them for gods.
Okay. Yeah.
Now Yahweh came down and used his, that you will worship me, but a lot of them didn't do that. It's just that we got so caught up in their power and their and the tech that we mistook them for gods, like people do today.
I was coming from more of a place, and I'm sorry I gave you the wrong answer. I was coming from more of a place where preachers themselves in their teachings, would they alter the way they taught if they consider aliens being under part of God's plan?
I don't know. We haven't gotten there yet. We don't. We can't jump to that question when you have some people who don't even believe they exist.
Yeah.
So that's kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Because you look at God created everything in the heavens, and so you would think that those with that mindset would see these things and be like, it's all part of that plan. And then
a lot of them see them as demons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Specifically, what do they refer to when they say that, though? Is it a scripture that points that out?
Well, I think I think it's the way you interpret the scriptures. Some people will just interpret it because they say there are no ETs in the Bible. And some of them may say, if you look at the grays, they look like little demons. Or if you look at the praying mantis, I have people in my family who they know nothing about, but they'll just say they look like demons. So it's an ignorance. And again, it's not so much what the Bible says, it's your interpretation of that. I read the same Bible, but I come out with a whole different outcome.
Okay. So
the only difference is
no.
The only difference is I'm an experiencer, but I read the same Bible they read, but it's just your interpretation of it. And a lot of that interpretation is from if they've been indoctrinated. I was Baptist. It didn't work for me anymore. I got away from that because I could use my mind as well as my connection with creation. God, call it what you will. But a lot of people, they can't have that. This is what it says. This is what it means. They don't know about Hebrew. They don't know about maybe multiple interpretations. They just say the Bible says what it means, and it means what it says. Yahweh has Moses go into Canaan, not Moses, because Moses is dead by then, but he has them go into Canaan and kill men, women, and children.
Yeah.
Now, if you say to an evangelical Christian, what does that sound like what a God would do? Does that sound like a God to you? And they would have an answer for you.
Yeah.
So it's about interpretation. I had one guy tell me, "Oh, you want your God to be warm and fuzzy." I said, "No, I just don't want my God to tell me to go into a land and kill men, women, and children." What kind of what? Anyway, so we read the same Bible, we just look at it a different way.
And that's a heavy place to leave it in. And I appreciate your time, Reverend, joining me again.
Sure, brother.
We'll do it again. Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Michael J. Carter, I will be talking to you soon. Thanks for coming in. You
Give
guys
me a shout, brother.
We got hour 3.
Take care, everybody.
Right here on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show.
Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
right, everyone, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3, the third and final hour, as we have about 20 seconds left when we come back from radio. Here we get ready to go. Let's see. We'll be doing some Steve Stockton, some Tales Untold, Mispersoned Mysteries, and Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap-up, followed by UFO and Weird News. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. This is hour number 3. The third and final hour, we're going to jump into some Steve Stockton Tales Untold, Mispersoned Mysteries, and also Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap-up, some UFO and Weird News. Also, we want to thank our guest for the night, Reverend Michael J. Carter, for being awesome for hours 1 and 2. If you missed any of the conversation, hop in the archives, absolutely free. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio, as we go ahead and get ready to jump right on in to what we do every night. Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries with our guy, Steve Stockton. Let's go.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries.
Next up, we have the case of JoJo DeLaude. On November 9th, 1995, 21-year-old JoJo DeLaude left her home in Callan, County Kilkenny, to take a bus to Dublin, where she was supposed to meet up with friends. After spending the afternoon at Bruxelles Pub on Grafton Street, she planned to take the bus back home around 10 p.m. However, she missed the last bus of the night and had to board a different one that would take her somewhat close to her final destination in Naas, County Kildare. With no other plans for the evening, she hopped off that bus and began hitchhiking. This was a common occurrence at the time. After hitchhiking her first ride to Moon, JoJo called a friend from a payphone. She promised to be home soon, as someone had just pulled over and offered her a ride while she was making the call. As soon as she hung up, she presumably got into the car and was never seen or heard from again. Even though her family continuously asked for updates and assistance, the police initially refused to provide any help. They believed JoJo voluntarily disappeared and would reappear on her own eventually. During the evening, when JoJo DeLaude disappeared, a truck driver claimed he saw a young woman running naked through Moon. The driver and his boss were traveling through the area at the time and spotted the visibly distressed woman, but they did not stop to offer assistance. They did, however, call the police and were promised that someone would immediately go to the location and investigate. The driver claimed that he later learned the woman was not JoJo, and authorities confirmed that it was actually someone else. Now, the murder of JoJo was only recently declared by authorities, and now the police are searching for any traces of her remains. The case was reopened a few years ago, and the Police Service of Ireland issued a statement to the public and JoJo's family. They now believe she was a victim of homicide and that her cause of death was most likely due to violent means. This case is filled with an extraordinary amount of information, largely due to the relentless effort of JoJo's family, particularly her devoted sister. They've taken it upon themselves to investigate the case, feeling let down by the authorities from the get-go. Hiring investigators and following leads has become their own responsibility. Despite all their efforts, the truth behind JoJo DeLaude's disappearance remains elusive, and sadly, she is not the only young woman to go missing in that area. Next, we have Jamie Herdman. At only 26 years old, Jamie Herdman was a skilled chef from Whakatane, New Zealand. He had found to work at a furniture removal company in Broome, Western Australia, when he disappeared. During his free time, Jamie poured his passion into renovating a Nissan utility van that he dreamed of taking for a cross-country trip across Australia. After completing his project and waiting for the perfect moment, Jamie finally set off on his long-awaited road trip. Jamie's family reported him missing on December 5, 2006, when they couldn't reach him during his trip. An investigation was launched, and authorities discovered that Jamie was last seen hitchhiking at Dally Waters, approximately 317 miles from Darwin, where his family believed he was headed. His van, which had a history of overheating, was quickly located abandoned near a roadhouse on Stewart Highway. Inside the unlocked van, authorities found Jamie's clothes, phone, credit cards, toothbrush, and some cash. However, his keys were missing. In November of 2006, Jamie made the unusual decision to travel through the center of Australia on his way to Daly Waters. His brother Carl described this as bizarre. Jamie was an avid fisherman, leading his family to believe that he would have more likely chosen a route along the coast. However, Carl reported that Jamie had left Broome suddenly and without informing anyone, not friends, family, or even his employer. The family suspected that Jamie may have received a warning from a friend about someone who was after him or planning to harm him in some way. Everyone held on to the hope that Jamie was simply unaware of the search efforts to find him and that he was out there, somewhere, continuing his journey and still safe. There was also the possibility that he had become stranded in a remote Aboriginal community, cut off from the rest of civilization due to severe flooding. But as more time passed, without any word from Jamie, it became increasingly unlikely that he would be found alive. Despite extensive search efforts on land and in the air, no trace of Jamie or any clues as to his whereabouts have ever been discovered. He remains missing to this day, along with many others who have traveled through the isolated Australian outback and never returned home. And finally, Joshua Jones. Joshua Jones, a 29-year-old man from Hurst Rise in Matlock, Derbyshire, England, left his home on December 12, 2020 at approximately 11:30. He told his wife, Talia, that he was going to the pharmacy and would be back soon. Before leaving, he kissed his 2-year-old son and wife goodbye, but never returned. At around noon, CCTV footage captured Joshua at a department store and then later at a nearby Sainsbury grocery store. Witnesses reported seeing him hitchhiking on the A632 towards Chesterfield at around 4 p.m. Prior to his disappearance, Joshua had texted his wife saying, "I love you to the moon and back." This mysterious vanishing led to multiple reports to the police about potential sightings of Joshua. However, no one has been able to locate him since. When he disappeared, he'd been wearing a gray super dry jacket and blue jeans. The sleeves of the coat were light colored and the inside was green. Other identifying features include a Japanese-inspired tattoo on his right arm featuring a dragon, a koi fish, and a crane. On his left wrist, there was a tattoo in Talia's handwriting that read, "To the moon and back," with a red rocket and runes surrounding a moon inside. Despite the efforts of authorities, including drone searches, mountain rescue teams, and a helicopter, Joshua Jones could not be found, nor any information about his disappearance. There are no leads or evidence in this case. His wife claimed that she wasn't surprised that he couldn't be seen on CCTV footage because there were only cameras in central Matlock. Talia also mentioned that her and Joshua had often talked about leaving society behind and building a treehouse to live in. During the pandemic and lockdowns, Joshua struggled with feeling trapped and anxious. He refused to seek medical help, believing time would heal his wounds. Talia remains hopeful that her husband is still alive and possibly living in the wilderness, as he was skilled in survival and loved the outdoors. Now, there is no record explaining the reason that he would have had to possibly leave his wife and son behind intentionally. However, the day before he vanished, his car had broken down, and both he and Talia were concerned about the expenses of getting it fixed and how that would affect plans to purchase Christmas gifts. On top of that, rent was due, and they had yet to shop for their holiday meal. Talia speculates that the stress of their life together may have pushed him to flee. Unfortunately, there is no further information on this case, and Joshua Jones remains missing to this day.
All right. Welcome back. That was Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries. We appreciate Steve Stockton being a part of the show, as always. And we're going to go ahead and get ready to jump into our very next segment, which is the After Hours Wrap-Up. So you know what time it is, guys. Let's go ahead and bring in our guy, Drew Banky.
You're an irredeemable monster!
Come here, I'm gonna eat you! Get in my belly!
Kick him in the north!
He doesn't have north! Do it! That man's gone mad!
You're a monster!
Yes. After hours wrap up with none other than Drew Banky. Drew, how are you this week, sir?
Disclosure.
That's what I'm
Still
talking
waiting
about.
on it. We're still waiting on it, guys. Hey, the drones weren't nothing. And I totally believe what the government says. So the drones weren't nothing. Move on.
Exactly. Move on. Nothing to see here, as they
Nothing
say.
to see here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, look. We talked with the great Reverend Michael J. Carter today, and I saw you put a couple questions forward as well. What did you think about the conversation, and what did you want to say about it?
How many times do we got to hear people talk about source before we all start talking about source? Um, source is source, man. And once you get that message, like that's what your conversation talks about, and this is just one more guest that just tells me that I'm on the right track, talking about oneness. And I all of like I just vibe with everything he was talking about. When I asked about the connection between Mary Magdalene and ISIS,
Mm-hmm.
not the terrorist group. ISIS is in Egypt, ISIS as in Osiris's wife, Isis. Just some theories that I have, and I've hinted at before, and I've talked about them briefly before about the connection between Osiris and Isis and Jesus and Mary Magdalene that I kind of got downloaded or figured out in meditation one day or something like that, but yeah, just when the question come up about Mary Magdalene from the chat, that just triggered me. And yeah, his answer kind of just let me know that where he's at, and it was very apparent through the whole conversation where his mind was at, having that having that mindset, and it just spewed through as in the 2 hours that he was talking. So
Yeah, the time always goes fast with the Reverend. He always has some great, valuable information, and that's why we love to have him on here. And there was the conversation we talked about. We brought up the whole Raelian movement, because I wish I could have had the Reverend with us on that show, because I would have loved that dynamic, and maybe it's something we could set up for a later time. But it's it's interesting when you break it down in how religions think. And Lavera Lucchini put a question in earlier, just as I was actually about to ask the Reverend about the whole possibility of, once these things get here, the idea that there will be pop-up religious movements solely based off of the fact that these things are here. So people will be looking to these things as a higher power, higher than us, and essentially maybe worshiping these things. UFO cult, essentially, like a UFO cult. I don't know the way to put it.
yeah, I could see that. I could see that idea how it could happen. I see it more as there being no religions. I see it. I see their presence. They when they come. I see that moment, that presence of like integrating with them. I see the collapse of all religions, because it's like it's going to show you that connection back to source. So source, like I heard the Reverend talking about, you can still worship and still believe there's a high, we're not alone in the universe. But, at one point, there that religion and what got you to the moment of understanding, there's a time and place to leave that behind too. Like, and that's each individual's own decision, but for me, I still honor, the sweat lodge, ayahuasca ceremonies, still participate in a lot of these ceremonies too. But how I view them is not like it was before. It's not these ceremonies and stuff are not the doorways, or not the catalyst to allow me to commune with the higher power, that connection is always there, and you can still honor the rituals that got you to that place. I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not telling anyone how to worship or pray or anything like that. I'm just speaking it, from my own growth pattern. At one time, the Sundance was very important to me. These things were very important to me, and I still honor them, but they just moved into a different category, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen when they get here. When their presence alone, like when we're in the presence of someone that has a higher vibration, we tend to match that vibration, just like two guitars in the same room. If you strum one note on one guitar, that a guitar across the room will vibrate and match that vibration.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're no different, so if we're around someone that has a higher vibration, and we're going to match that vibration. And same is true when we have face-to-face contact and shaking hands and sitting down at a table and talking about how the universe started and all that with our ET brothers of a higher vibration. We're going to match that. There's going to be some type of flux there. They're probably going to come down in vibration, but we're definitely going to come up in vibration. And when you do that, I think you're going to level out of religious and dogmatic practices.
Well, I'll say this. I really feel like, when they say God created the heavens and the earth. So I think that phrase right there, being that they pulled that from the Bible, and which are the same in most Bibles, that very fact alone, I think, already opens the door for the acceptance, because once you get used to whatever these things are, as weird as they might look, and you'll look at it just as another one of, quote, God's creatures or sources, creations, right? So and that's why I asked the question to the Reverend is, like in a moment where that happens, being that a lot of religions approach it that way, that God created everything under the stars, the heavens and the earth, then would the teachings automatically begin to also reflect that as like brothers and sisters sort of situation, where it's like, okay, we're humans, they're whatever they are, but we are still all under this one source. So because that's where the acceptance comes in. But there is also, we know there's actual UFO cults out there, and a lot of people try to call ufology that. There are sects of this group, this community, which definitely might line up with that. But we're talking about, like, what was that? The one where they all unalived out in the 90s. Oh man, I forgot.
Yeah,
Bo Peep. It was Bo Peep was the leader, but you have groups like that, and you have the possibility for those things to pop up, because potentially the way that someone is viewing what they're seeing, or trying to wrap their mind around what this is, and then they all of a sudden you have a new cult, a new group.
Sure. It's all about discernment. Are you talking about the group that all had tracksuits and like Nike shoes on or something like that? Yeah.
Exactly. And they were birthed
Gate,
off
that's
of
it. Heaven's Gate. Someone just put it in the chat.
Yes.
Yeah, but the Raelian movement too, just because someone believes in a practice, a religion, something like that, doesn't mean that they're, in a cult or anything like that. So there's parts of the Raelian religion that I agree with too. But if you've seen the documentary on the several documentaries out there that they have, there's a large questionable sexual component to the religion, and open open relations, not to be too graphic or anything about it, but and the leader of it's has done some questionable things with There's rumors of him of being underage, of messing with underage girls and stuff like that. So, but that doesn't, you can't let that take away from the whole, Raelian thing. That's it. There's a lot of good that they talk about, but this, when you get into the cult aspect of it, and what you spoke about before, thing that troubles you is the bottleneck of connecting through one person, and that thing, that's a big red flag for me too, because my whole position on this planet and why I'm breathing right now is to spread the message of we all have the right to connect. We all have that sacred right to connect back to the consciousness and the energy that created us.
Let me give you a perfect example of this. Actually, there is a couple of individuals out in the community that consider themselves reptilian channelers, right? So this individual has at times, uh, made the statement that I connect with this particular species of reptilians, and you have to, I'm the only one that can do it. Like, you kind of have to go through me to do that. So we know examples of other types that say the same sort of thing. And then those would be the ones that would, essentially take on the role of starting these sort of things. And it's just like, it because we know there are so many of those types out there, that in the moment that these things actually show themselves or just make themselves known, they don't necessarily have to land, but just that we know that the presence is there, like is widely known, then it's the possibility of so many of those little small groups just popping out of nowhere is just insane when you think about it, because they already have sort of a following, even pre-disclosure, right? So if they really showed themselves, then it's like, oh man, this guy knew the whole time. Like, this guy has the direct line to these reptilians, and then that's how that sort of thing starts. So there's just always the concern there, because,
Yeah.
and not saying, and to kind of back up, because I just want people to know, I didn't say the Raelian movement was a cult. I just brought it up during the interview, and asked their, pointed out the fact that historically it had been looked at as that, and then I kind of led into why they may have perceived it that way, being, as you said, with the bottleneck, and that there's a living person that kind of would be your in between, your go between, in order to connect with this higher source or this higher thing. So, and truthfully, if you see something like that, or if that ends up being the thing that you have to do to connect, then it's probably not really what you want to do. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. We all have the sacred right. That all I got to say to it is we all have the sacred right to connect back to that vibration, that center of the universe, that creator that created us. We all have a sacred right to connect to that one-on-one. We don't have to go through anybody that tells you any different, run the other way. Like, I that's wholeheartedly, it's from the heart. And anyone that doesn't promote that, your own connection directly back, that's you really need to be questioning that person's motive.
Well, you ended right at the right time, so we go into a break here in about 30 seconds. And what I just say is that, just let them show up already. Like, let's just see what happens anyways, just across the board, whether it's anything to do with religion. Let's just meet these guys, get it out the way, and then figure out what we're going to do next. And it almost seems like the way we started the year, that we may be going towards that direction. And is it something we could see this year? What further things are left to develop as far as this conversation goes?
It's 1 month into it, man. Crazy. We're already 1 month down.
I think there's a lot. And I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised when we talk December 31st. But as we get ready to go to the last and final break, guys, Drew Banky and myself are going to be right back. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk some more right here on the Spaced Out Radio After Hours radio show. 30 minutes left. Don't go anywhere. You guys come right on back. And we may get into some weird news tonight as well. Spaced Out Radio. See you in just a minute. All right, we are clear. And thank you for the super chat and lack of disclosure movement. Because I'm a Starseed child and I connect to the mantoid race. Nice. Let's see. Woo Riders DG. Can you dig it? That's what I'm talking about. Hey, the social dig, which you can find at youtube.com/at Mr. Rob G, by the way. Appreciate you, Woo Riders DG. And I saw you were posting photos, Drew Banky, on your Facebook in the snow, buddy.
Yeah.
So it snowed out there where you're at?
Yep. We got about 8 inches the other day, and was out playing with Hawk at all. It's all gone today. It's got up, I think it was in the 50s today, so it's all gone. But yeah, snowed for about 18 hours. Got about 8 inches or so, and
you're pretty high up. Is that normal this time of year?
Oh yeah, we're getting snow all. We've seen snow all the way up into May, and as early in September. So
that is awesome, man. I like to go visit it, but I like to leave it behind when I'm ready to go. Like, I lived in Oklahoma City, and just dealing with driving in snow, and then how it snows so much over time that it creates like this really hard pack, and just that whole thing is just
yeah.
And then the snow melts and your clothes are wet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been cold. I mean, I talked about it before. It's been cold here, and it was too cold for a while for it to snow. So when it snowed is actually a sign that it's warming up. Like, -5 and stuff, you don't really see it snowing when it's -5. This I guess it's harder I don't know the science behind it, but it just seems that it only snows when it gets a little warmer. But yeah, it was really nice today. I worked we're getting chicken eggs again, so that's couldn't come at a better time because chicken eggs are expensive right now. But our chickens, we're getting about 3 or 4 eggs a day out of them, and they redid their coop so you could get into their chicken boxes from the outside today. So just exciting things, man. Getting ready to go to Cali in a few days on Thursday, leaving for Cali. So I won't be here next weekend. Remind everybody.
Right. Yep.
Get your fill right now. And by the time I see you, it'll be after Valentine's Day. And on Valentine's Day, I'm taking me and my wife are going on a date up in Denver. Our 10-year anniversary.
Good. That sounds romantic, man. Cool and romantic, man. So congrats to that, to the wife for having to put up with the Drew Banky. No, I'm just playing.
10 years.
He's an awesome guy. He's an awesome dude. I did want to thank the Super Chat and Joanne as well. Super sticker. Appreciate your support of the show tonight. Also, we were talking about weather out there. It's been beautiful here, sir. I just want to make a few people jealous. I don't know what temperatures are around the country right now, or the world for that fact. Excuse me. But we had, I want to say this weekend is probably been upper 70s, almost 80 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. Just wonderfully beautiful weather. Just, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. But we are going back to cold. It looks like we'll be getting rain on Friday, which is awesome and needed here as well, right? Because we're
how far are you from Palm Springs?
Truthfully, not too far. I'm about I'm less than 100 miles from Los Angeles, so put it like that. So a little over 100 miles. Yeah, probably 150 miles, something like that.
That's where I'll be going Thursday. I'm getting nervous about flying, man. All these planes, all this stuff going on with planes and stuff. But
dude, oh my God.
I'm just going back to faith, Plus, I'm going for ceremony. I'm going for a
Yeah.
ceremony. So
Yeah, you had to remind me of that, man. I'm about to put this positive energy, healing energy out there for you, man, because I just said I wasn't flying anymore for a while. And I'm just scared of heights anyway, really. Is really why I don't want to fly, but
yeah,
this latest stuff just doesn't help it, obviously, as
it's
well.
crazy, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
But whatever happens, I'm always, I don't see y'all guys ever again. I love y'all, but I'm pretty sure I'll be back in a week or so.
Like, who we gonna get to fill in, Drew? Come on, man. You gonna put us in that kind of
Nobody
position?
can do it. But
We
you
got
get the Reverend, dude.
you
get the Reverend
3
back.
seconds. All right, here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We're in the middle of the After Hours wrap up with Drew Benke in the building as we get ready to jump back into some conversation. Don't forget, guys, if you haven't, hit the like button. If you're on social media, also hit the like button. There's one there also. And if you miss any of the show, once again, youtube.com/@SpacedOutRadio. There is a plethora of options there, as Dave Scott says, as we are jumping back into the conversation. And yeah, hopefully we get some good disclosure coming this year. I'm just so optimistic, man. And really, I want to find ways that we can maybe get out there and help expedite the process. Just like I asked the Reverend, like, what could we do? Like, I would march on the, but yeah, okay, maybe we should, kind of tweak how that is, or even, look at how effective something like that would be. I could see where it wouldn't be as effective today, but I'm just looking for options, man. Like, what other ways could we, use our time and what we have to try to kind of address disclosure? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's, I think it's mass meditation. I think we need to have more of that. If we can, and I'm just saying this as an if, which is probably true, but the whole CE5, the psionics things that Jake Barber interviews talking about lately. If we can summon ships, like, why we could do anything we wanted, like with if we agreed upon it. And one person's thought and intention is very powerful, but when it's coupled and magnified by multiple people, like it just gains strength. So I think I think this is in a sense a meditation that we have here for 3 hours every Saturday and Sunday night. We're raising the bar. And when we're saying raising the bar, we're talking about it in kind of a metaphorical sense, but literally we're kind of raising the bar. I think we're doing the work right now. And I say the same thing pretty much every weekend. These conversations is doing the work. I think this is our march. These 3 hours that we do every Saturday and Sunday, I think this is our march. And I think that's what we need to think about moving forward. I kind of felt this message when the Reverend was talking about it. We need to expand our minds and stop thinking we can handle things by doing it in a physical sense. There's greater powers. There's more effective ways of doing it, and there's more magical ways of doing it that are there and are being shown to us. So why,
I often think about, you look at out in the audience, and you see so many people are tuning into a show each day, and you just wonder, like, who's out there, right? Like, are some of the people, because obviously humanity's out there, but are some of the people that are holding on to the secret, are they watching? You know what I mean? Because then totally what you said, it's like, this is the march, these things that we do. And I'm just hoping that this information gets over to them in that way, because I think when you tap into compassion and just human to human being, then maybe they're like, yeah, you know what, we should just come out and tell them what's going on. We should stop holding these secrets. But I know that's pie in the sky, and I know, that likely wouldn't be the outlook on it. But yeah, in that way that you speak about, that's why we do these shows, and you hope for someone out to be out there that this would connect to in that way to make them want to, come out and say something.
Well, there's times are changing, there's a lot of crazy things. And, talk about Sean. I've mentioned Sean Ryan several times in the past. He has just been going through some stuff recently, and that it just goes to show the power of the people. So back in September, he interviewed, uh, he he filmed and taped the interview for Chris Bledsoe.
Yes.
So Bledsoe, Chris Bledsoe and Ryan Bledsoe both went up there. Yeah, he interviewed Chris. It was like a 3-hour interview or whatever, and it was supposed to come out in November. It kept getting delayed, and finally they got the notification that the Sean Ryan show was not going to air Chris's story because it didn't align with some of the values of the Sean Ryan show and stuff. Well, there was a huge outpouring. This all happened on X and some of the other social medias. There's huge outpouring of people tagging Sean Ryan of like, why are you not letting, why are you not sharing his story? This guy's been interviewed by NASA, he's got hours of footage, all types of other stuff, and pretty well documented experiencer. I think Chris Bledsoe is one of the most highly documented experiencers that we have out there right now. And why are you not airing that interview? And eventually, we just had a notification today that he will be he's about to release the interview. So
what do you think?
And I put my 2 cents in there too a few times, in those comments of I'm a combat veteran, healed through psychedelics, 2 tours Iraq, early on Iraq, healed through psychedelics, near-death experience, author, and all this other stuff. And I've been straight up told that I don't have a spot there with the producers of the Sean Ryan show. So my statement, my official statement is it's Sean's show. He can decide who he wants on, but they're missing a really good story if they don't, 1, put Chris's story out there, and 2, put my story out there. They're missing 2 really great stories.
Definitely, and I agree. What was the reason that he said it did not align with what that the reason why he was holding that Bledsoe interview back? Said it didn't align with his values. Did he elaborate on that? Like what?
There's parts of Chris's story that doesn't line with I can't remember the exact statement is a few days ago, but it basically to the sense of there's parts of Chris's story that doesn't align with SRS. So
I wonder what that is, though. I mean, for you to not air an interview, because Chris, like I said, we've heard Chris Bledsoe speak before, so I'm just wondering what part of his conversation is going to be the part that didn't align. It's just, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out.
There's a lot of talk that Sean is helping push a negative ET narrative, and Chris's accounts and everything, and encounters with the orbs and everything that he's filmed, he's totally on board of it basically being an angelic or higher dimensional being, and it being totally positive. So he says that any talk of negative ET is outside of anything that he's experienced.
So I wonder, is it the God aspect of it? I'm just wondering. I mean, maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't, but it's just interesting to me that, I interviewed a lot of people, and I'm just thinking of a time where what would make me just hold not air an interview, and it would have to be something offensive that I would feel would be offensive to the audience or offensive to myself. And I'm just trying to think about what Chris talks about that would even touch that. But maybe in releasing this, maybe that story comes out and we'll see why. I'm interested. I saw the advertisement for it. I didn't know the entire backstory. I just know I saw people on social media who were telling him to release it. Like, dude, I heard you interviewed Chris Bledsoe, release the interview. So I guess we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. It's been, September. That's a long time to have an interview in post-production, but I'm glad it's I hope it does come out. I think his story is very valuable to hear, and it's gonna reach new ears, from on that platform.
Yeah. Everybody's story is important, and truthfully, I don't even know how to say this really, but you end up when something like this happens, and obviously Chris Bledsoe has been on, he's known in this field, but when do you get to a point to where you start looking at the other experiencers, like when is the focus ever going to be turned to the other experiencers? Because it just seems like you get the top guys in the field, that's who gets to go on these major platforms, that's whose stories get to reach the world. I mean, essentially we're reaching the world with what we're doing, but we're not on the level where we know 1 million people will see this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so much here that may not ever get tapped into, right? As far as this whole narrative goes. And I'm just like, yeah, when will we ever get to that point? Or
I
will
don't know, man. It's that's a broad question. It's just whenever, maybe never, maybe there's only ever going to be, a certain amount of people that hit mainstream and stuff like that. Who knows, man? I've definitely, I've done, let's see, about 6 years of public speaking now, and none of it's been through an advertiser or anything like that. No booking agent, and hundreds of interviews, and I probably sent out thousands of emails, especially in the early days, trying to get booked on shows and stuff like that, and just keep pushing and trying, and not be afraid to ask anybody to be on their show, and just, I think that's imposter syndrome, and I talked about that before. It's imposter syndrome and psychedelic work and ceremonial work, but it's imposter syndrome in UFO and stuff like that too. Like, people think that their story doesn't matter just because they're not getting booked in big places or big conferences, that and they give up telling their story. But if you look at it from just one person, and if you're just getting your story out to one new person or opening up one person with your story, that should be your goal. And I think everything else comes along. But it's a hard business to be in, man. Like, and especially going through it and not talking smack about other people. I hate that the UFO community, there's groups of people in here that talk smack about each other. Like, that's not really the focus. The main focus of all this really is unity. Like, at the basis of this whole thing, disclosure and everything, is unity. Like,
that's why I do it, man. It's the only reason why I touched this.
Timestamp this comment, and come back to it in 5 years. Also, you could timestamp what I talked about before about maybe we're seeing the end of the government as the days click on, man. Like, it's getting crazier.
Look, I could obviously there's a lot that could be said there, for sure. So we'll kind of leave it on that note. Hopefully, just say do better. Do better will be the last words that we put on that. Just do better. And that can go for everybody out there. But I think where this could be applied in what we're currently going through here and what the world is currently experiencing. But Drew Banky, awesome after hours wrap up, man. We're going to wrap this thing up for the weekend. And we got a full weekend next week. So Saturday and Sunday. So you guys will be seeing Drew Banky back in the building Saturday with our guest, supposed to be Rex Bear. So this guy was recommended by our chat here, and we went out and got him, and he's scheduled to be here on Saturday. So we'll see how that goes. And then we have who else do we have after him? We have Zaysan Saldowski. So yeah, so we got two great people next week. It should be awesome. Yes, Rex Bear should be here Saturday, and we hope to have him on, and we'll see what happens from there. But Drew Banky, man, thank you for your time, dude. As always, you valued, and I appreciate you coming in and doing what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate you, brother. I will not be here next weekend.
Oh, you won't.
Saturday night, while this show's going on Saturday night, I will be in an ayahuasca ceremony, and I will be thinking about each and every one of you, especially you, my brother. And
Yes,
I'll be praying for you. Joshua Tree, last minute bookings. Check out sacredjourneyswithin.com. There's links at the top of the main page there. We still got a few seats left, and we're maxing out at 11. We're at 8 right now, so we have 3 seats left. So at this point, you would actually have to have already experienced ayahuasca to come set with us. We wouldn't be taking any first time people at this point. But if you're close to Southern California and you get the calling to come out next weekend, do ceremony with us, let me know. So,
all right. That you heard what Drew said. You know where to find him as well. Appreciate you coming in, man. We're gonna get ready to wrap this thing up. Talk to you soon, man. Have a great time out there. We'll see you when you get back.
See y'all.
All right. Later, brother. Drew Banky with After Hours wrap up with the awesome show. We're going to go ahead and jump right in. We're going to probably get at least one good story in here on our UFO and weird news, guys. So just kick back as we get ready to do that right about now.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, UFO and weird news. We're going to go ahead and jump into a story that we have here. Apparently, there's a woman with X-ray vision. Okay, I didn't know about this. As we go ahead and jump into the story, let's see what we get. Scientists tried to explain how a woman with X-ray vision can see people's medical conditions. Russian woman Natasha Demkina said she had the ability to see inside people's bodies. A woman from Russia previously claimed that she could see inside people's bodies because of a unique ability. In 2004, Natasha Demkina was just 17 when she was invited to the UK media to speak about her so-called superpower. Natasha claimed that she was able to look deep at the inside of people's bodies to detect if something sinister was going on. As reported by The Guardian at the time, Natasha made an appearance on ITV's This Morning, where she left an impression on Fern Britton for spotting her sore ankle. She also told Chris Steele, the show's in-house doctor, that something was up with his kidneys, stomach, and pancreas. After going for a scan, he came back with the all clear. Earlier on in the year, scientists invited the Russian to take part in an experiment to prove whether or not she had X-ray vision. Quote, I was at home with my mother, aged, and she's 10 at the time, and suddenly I had a vision, she told the outlet. I could see inside my mother's body, and I started telling her about the organs that I could see. Quote, now I have to switch from my regular vision to what I call medical vision. For a fraction of a second, I see a colorful picture inside the person, and then I start to analyze it. Even though Natasha failed all of her tests during the experiment, it seems scientists still had a hard time figuring out what was up. Richard Wiseman, a professional magician turned psychologist and paranormal investigator at the University of Hertfordshire said, quote, at best, she's done this a lot, and she has a real expertise at being able to look at people and make reasonably accurate diagnoses. But at worst, there's something else going on. Quote, I wasn't convinced there wasn't other stuff going on. When I saw her do her usual readings, I couldn't believe the discrepancy between what I was hearing and how impressed the individuals were. Quote, I thought they were going to walk away saying it was embarrassing, but time and time again, they said it was amazing. Before each reading, I asked the people what was the main medical problem, and Natasha never got one of those right. Despite the results, Natasha reportedly continued to make money from her, quote, superpower by charging a consolation fee for people who were interested. Well, I don't think about how lucrative it could be. I just want people to accept me, she said. The dream is, if I preserve my gift, to use it, but on the basis of proper medical knowledge. Yeah, I don't know. When you get into stuff like that, when you get into superpowers and we know people can do things like remote viewing, but I don't know. I've never heard of, especially in this community, being able to see ailments within people. So don't know how I feel about that particular story, even though I know there is a such thing as healing energy, because, which I guess we call Reiki. I've actually experienced that myself, as you guys all know. So being able to channel some sort of source energy, just like they show in the movies, and kind of having that go through you and reach the object that you touched, real thing, guys, real thing. Real thing. So with that being said, we're going to get ready and wrap things up. We had a short weekend. Hope you enjoyed the show that we put on yesterday with Danny Sheehan and Science Bob. And tonight we had Reverend Michael J. Carter, which was totally awesome. I just always love getting his perspective on just the various things that we talk about. Also, I like to thank Drew Banky as he comes in every single weekend with the wrap up. We have fun diagnosing and not really, breaking down what was talked about earlier in the day. Steve Stockton is always an awesome part of this team as well, because I don't know where we would be without Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries. What happens if someone that becomes one of those individuals that he talks about? That's what I think about when I hear him tell those stories. So hold your people close. We also want to thank the man who rocks us in and out of every single weekend. Is the guy you hear right here, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, who teaches us to always never say never. Never say never again, because yes, the phenomena is real, which means anything and everything, therefore, is possible. So if you appreciate the show today, go ahead, throw your horns up. We would appreciate that. Also, we want to thank everybody wherever you may be listening from, wherever in the world. We want to thank you for tuning your frequency right here to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. What's that, you ask, guys? We own the night. This show has been copyright SOR Media Ventures Limited, Spaced Out Radio. It has been a pleasure once again serving you as your host. I am Mr. Rob G. This is the After Hours Radio Show. And to all you space travelers out there, it's not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, as we get ready to go out there for the night, you can best believe that we're going to be here doing it the same time, same place next week. Much love to everybody. Thanks for coming in. See you next time. Take care. right. That is a done deal. That is a wrap for the night. So this is Sunday, guys, which means you guys are going into your week. If you're in Australia, you're already it's already Monday right now. So you're already into your new work week. Just want to go ahead and put some positive energy out there. Hopefully everybody has a great week. And next time we meet up, we can talk about all the great things that happened during that week and get back into some more fantastic conversations. As once again, we are scheduled to have Rex Bear on the show next week, next Saturday. And then Sunday we have Zaystan Saldowski. And should be very interesting. So make sure that you hit the notification bell on those shows. And so I can see you back here next week. All the new people as well that I saw in the chat tonight, thanks for coming in. Much love. I would appreciate it if you wouldn't mind clicking that like button tonight and then consider hitting that subscribe so we could see you again. We would love to do that. So thanks for coming on in. Let's see here. Much love to Galactic Disclosure Movement, saying great show, Mr. Rob G. Really do appreciate you, and hope to see you again. Have a great rest of your night, guys. Have a great week. Channel positive thoughts, positive energy as we get up out of here, because we still want retribution at the end of the day. Take care.
Because we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.